Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. So this story seems to be flying a little under the radar right now, as there's been a lot of games that's come out in the last couple of weeks. I mean, you have Horizon Forbidden West, and you also have Elden Ring, which just released today. So it's easy to understand why something like this would be a little overlooked, but it does appear that Xbox is about to get a huge upgrade that's going to give them some pretty significant gains in terms of performance. Now, this should directly affect a lot of their first-party games, so this is very good news, and I'll kind of explain why here in just a little bit. Now, we do also have an event happening this weekend that I think Nintendo fans might want to pay attention to, and we'll kind of go over that here in a little bit and talk about some of the things that we might possibly see there. To get things started off today, though, we're going to be talking about a mascot platformer that we have not seen in a very long time, and that would be Gex the Gecko. Back in the 90s and early 2000s, there was a lot of these mascot platformers that I think a lot of us really have a lot of fond memories of, and, well, Gex was one of those games. It was a pretty good franchise back in the 90s, but that's kind of the thing because we haven't seen Gex the Gecko since 1999. Gex 3 released in 1999, and since then they just haven't done anything with this franchise. But interestingly enough, if you are a fan of Gex the Gecko, there might actually be a possibility that we could see the return of Gex sometime here soon. Now, this is no guarantee or anything like that, but something that we did talk about last year is that Gex had actually been trademarked over in Europe. It's of course important to keep in mind, though, that while sometimes, yes, that will lead to a new game, but at other times it's just simply the company, in this situation being Square Enix, doing their due diligence. So again, there's no guarantee with this or anything like that, but one thing that's now happening is that we're seeing a second trademark being filed over in Japan. So now this is actually the second trademark that we've seen for this franchise over the last year, which is definitely a good sign that maybe Square Enix is doing something with this franchise behind closed doors. Now, whether it's a remaster, a remake, or just a completely new game, we'll have to kind of wait and see. I mean, again, it could be absolutely nothing. But I think for fans of this franchise, there's at least hope that we might see a return for Gex sometime here soon. I will say that we have been seeing a little bit of a resurgence when it comes to these mascot platformers as of recent, so who knows? Maybe Square Enix will join in on all of the fun with Gex the Gecko. Next up, we do have a prior Xbox console exclusive to talk about, being The Ascent. This is a game that launched directly into Xbox Game Pass last year, and there was actually some excitement built up around this game, which we'll talk about that here in just a moment. But the good news here is that The Ascent will now be heading over to PlayStation as well. It will be available on the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 starting March 24th. If you do like dual-stick shooters, or if you're just looking for a good cooperative game to play with your friend, you might actually want to pay attention to The Ascent, especially on the PlayStation 5. The reason I say that is because surprisingly, The Ascent is a good game to kind of showcase the power of these next generation consoles. Visually, this game looks really good. It's got a beautiful cyberpunk-esque world, and they use its lighting to great effect. It might not be something that you would expect from a game like this, but really The Ascent is actually one of the better looking games that's released so far this generation, at least in terms of its graphics. Now, the problem with this game when it first launched, though, was that it didn't exactly get great reviews. A lot of that, though, was linked to technical issues. When it did first launch, it had frame rate problems, there was various bugs and glitches, and, you know, it just was not necessarily the most polished game in the world. But in terms of gameplay, there was actually a pretty fun game here. Again, it did launch directly into Xbox Game Pass last year, so I did download this one, and I played it cooperatively with my friend, and yeah, there's definitely some fun to be had here. So if they did fix those problems for the PlayStation launch, then it should be much smoother this time around, and might be worth keeping an eye on. At the very least, if you're looking for a good cooperative game, I think The Ascent will definitely fit the bill. Let's go and talk about Xbox, though, because it's now been revealed that the Xbox Series is about ready to get a pretty huge upgrade in terms of performance gains. Now, this was revealed over at Microsoft GameStack in a pretty lengthy discussion. I will leave a link to that in the description below if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of this topic here, but basically the feature topic here was for variable rate shading, or otherwise known as VRS. This is a very useful feature that you can use with RDNA 2 technology. And basically what it does is that it boosts performance by enabling the graphics card to dynamically alter the focus of shading within certain areas of a scene. In other words, it's going to focus on what truly matters. And by using VRS, you can have some pretty significant performance gains here while also retaining the image quality. And here they did show that with some impressive results by revealing VRS 2.0, which will be coming over to the Xbox Series. Now here they are using Unreal Engine 5, which is something that Microsoft uses a lot with with their internal teams, and they did show some of the different improvements that VRS 2.0 can make, and this includes a 33% improvement on nanite technology. Now, nanite is Unreal Engine 5's new virtualized geometry system, and they've showed this off various times in some of the demos that they've shown, and I mean, it does look incredibly good. So with VRS 2.0, you are going to get that 33% improvement for nanite technology on Unreal Engine 5, so that's already very impressive, but it does go far beyond that. They talked about a lot of different technical terms here and all the things that VRS 2.0 can improve on. I believe something like SSAO, that was like an improvement of like 57% or something, which is quite massive. But here in a conclusion, you can actually see that they say it will have 5 to 25% saving in GPU time achieved by both forward and deferred titles. 10 to 15% is typical. So that is actually quite significant and will benefit a lot of games in the long run. Now, with them using Unreal Engine 5 here, it does showcase just how much it can improve Unreal Engine 5 games, which is going to be important for Microsoft in general, because a lot of the games that they have in internal development is actually Unreal Engine 5 games. So with a developer like the Coalition, which is a bit of a technical genius when it comes to Unreal Engine, I imagine Gears 6 is going to look absolutely phenomenal when they eventually do show that game. I mean, if you go back and play Gears 5 or Gears 5 Hivebusters in specific, I mean, go back and play those games. They look absolutely phenomenal. So I'm really excited to see what the Coalition specifically can do with an Unreal Engine 5 game going forward. I do imagine it's going to be quite spectacular, to say the least. What this tells you, though, is that we are far from seeing the best looking games visually when it comes to the Xbox Series X. This really shouldn't come as a major surprise, though, because this is something that happens every single generation. As each year passes by, you continue to see games look visually better. And here we haven't really tapped into some of these next generation exclusive features or technologies. I mean, we haven't really even gotten to the Unreal Engine 5 games yet, and that's already going to be a huge upgrade. But here you're actually seeing some exclusive RDNA 2 technologies and how that can improve games as well. I mean, one thing you have to consider is that we're still releasing these cross-generation games, but as we get further into the generation, we're going to see some of these exclusive features come out using the RDNA 2 technology, and that's going to be very beneficial for both developers as well as be impactful for gamers. So for fans so far that have been a little underwhelmed this generation, rest assured, because we absolutely are going to see some pretty massive jumps as we head throughout the generation. This is something that happens every single generation with consoles, but you are already starting to see that here with the Xbox Series X using VRS 2.0, which will make for better performing games. Now, we do also have an event happening this weekend that Nintendo fans might want to pay attention to, especially if you like the Pokemon franchise. On February 27th, it is Pokemon Day, which means we're going to get a Pokemon Presents that's going to last around 14 minutes. So there's actually some potential that some huge news could come from this event, and while we don't know exactly what will be revealed here, I do think that we can kind of take a look at some of the things that we know and maybe take some educated guesses as to what could possibly be here. The first of which is actually a game that we've known about for quite a while, and that is actually Detective Pikachu 2. Now, the original game released back in 2016 for the 3DS, so it's been 6 years, and we do know that they're working on a second game, but because we haven't heard about this game in such a long time, some people started to assume that they might have canceled it. But what's interesting about that is here, actually, within just the last week, it was basically confirmed by Creatures Inc. in a job listing that they are indeed still working on a Detective Pikachu sequel. So now the question becomes, when are they actually going to announce this game? And ironically, with that popping up in the last week, I do wonder if we are going to get the official announcement for Detective Pikachu 2 here at Pokemon Presents on February 27th. That alone, I think, would make this event worth tuning into, because I think that the original Detective Pikachu game, it's one of the better spin-offs in this franchise. I mean, it is a little strange to see Pikachu talk at first, especially with the voice and the animations of his face in the game, but it overall was a pretty good point-and-click adventure game, and I'd be really excited to see a sequel for it, and hopefully we do get that announcement on February 27th. Another strong possibility here, though, is actually for a game that has released here recently, being Pokemon Legends Arceus. It's not out of the realms of possibility that we could get a DLC expansion announcement for Pokemon Legends Arceus. Now, for some of you all, you might think that that's a little too soon, but if you actually go back and take a look at at Pokemon Sword and Shield, that's a game that released in November of 2019. And then just a few short months later, in January of 2020, they announced both the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra DLC expansion pack for Pokemon Sword and Shield. So could they possibly do something similar here with Pokemon Legends Arceus, even though it just released last month? Yeah, they absolutely could do that. And honestly, if they were to announce a Pokemon Legends Arceus expansion, I think that would be really exciting. This is not something that I was expecting when I first played Pokemon Legends Arceus, but after completing the game, I left thinking that Pokemon Legends Arceus might be one of my favorite Pokemon experiences ever. I did not think that that was going to be the case when I first played this game, but they really impressed me with Legends Arceus. The challenge felt good, it was fun to explore, the catching mechanic was addicting, the story was actually interesting, and I just like pretty much everything about Legends Arceus. But I also think that there's potential to grow this game even more, especially when it comes to trainer battles. I thought that was one of the most fun parts about this game because it was more challenging and it asked you to be a little bit more strategic. So I would like to see them do a little bit more with that. But beyond that, they could add in new Pokemon, they could also add in new areas to explore, and they could add more story. I mean, there's a lot of things that you could do with this game, similar to something like Monster Hunter Rise. That's another game that consistently adds in content, and I could see them doing something like that here with Pokemon Legends Arceus if that's something that they want to do. So that right there is my two big predictions of what could be here at this Pokemon Presents. But one thing that I have consistently heard from fans is maybe they could possibly announce Generation 9 here as well. That would be absolutely huge, though I'm not necessarily sold on that just yet because we did just get the Diamond and Pearl remake and then also Pokemon Legends Arceus, which was of course developed by Game Freak. So I don't know if that will be here, but again, it could be a possibility, so just another reason to tune in for this event. Let me know some of your all's predictions though. What do you think will happen at this Pokemon Presents here? And do you think there's a possibility that we will see Generation 9? I guess we're really not going to have to wait too long to find out because again, it will happen in just a couple of days on February 27th. Let's go and take a look at the poll of the day, though, and with Elden Ring having some performance problems, we did talk about this yesterday. From Software, they're pretty infamous when it comes to this type of stuff. They're not exactly known to be technical wizards, and Elden Ring, for as good of a game as it is, it's also having some frame rate issues, to be specific. So I wanted to ask you all, do performance issues keep you from playing games when they first launch, despite them overall being viewed as a good game? And as you can see here, yes, it does affect a lot of you all. 56% of you said yes, while 36% of you said no. So that is actually really good portion of you all that are bothered by launch issues, and we'll just kind of wait it out and see if it gets patched and see if it will get fixed. Now, obviously, though, as some of you all pointed out in the comments, it really just depends on how severe the issues are. In a situation like Cyberpunk 2077, as an example, that game had a lot of problems at launch that a lot of people were having issues with. So with it really having some pretty major problems there at launch, it's very understandable as to why a lot of people would just kind of skip out on that and wait for it to eventually get patched. I mean, it's still getting patched to this day, but at least there is that next generation version out now, which is definitely a good thing. As for other games, though, I think it's almost kind of become expected when it comes to big AAA game launches, but nothing ever really seems to be absolutely 100% perfect when they first release. By this point, I think we've just kind of come to expect that there's going to be some type of patch post-launch to fix the various issues that the game has. And I mean, we're seeing that with Elden Ring, and we're also seeing that with even really Horizon Forbidden West. That's an excellent game, by the way, and I'm liking it much more than the first one, but it does have some different issues that they need to patch out. They actually did release their first patch just a couple days ago. I guess, though, it just really kind of depends on how much these issues bother you at the end of the day. In a situation like Horizon Forbidden West, I haven't really run into any type of problems in that game. I guess the vegetation was a little grainy, so they can maybe improve that, but it was nothing that really bothered me too much. But in a situation like Elden Ring, this is more linked to its technical issues specifically. I do feel that this game should run at a better frame rate, but at the same time, it's not necessarily something that's going to deter me from playing it. If you are more sensitive to frame rate problems, though, I can definitely understand why you would maybe want to hold off at the same time. For you fans out there, though, that are willing to just kind of be patient and wait for these games to get fixed, I mean, ultimately, you all do get to end up playing the better overall experience from a technical standpoint, so good for you, and yeah, I absolutely, completely, 100% understand. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.